Yo, disclaimer, this review, book summary, rant, whatever the fuck you're gonna call it, is gonna ruin the book for you. So if you want to read this book, you shouldn't watch this video. I, you there. I'm doing a review for this book called The Magicians by this dude called Lev Grossman. The main character is called Dick McFuckface Quentin Coldwater. This book talks about this dude who basically is a normal kid and he's studying and he's like a super genius and shit, and he goes through all of these special courses and exams, whatever the fuck they have in the United States. Anyway, so one day he's supposed to go meet this dude up to join some university or something like Harvard or some bullshit like that. So he goes to this dude's house and this dude is dead, and there's this bitch there that gives him a book and then gives him a note and tells him that his note is for him and it's from some anonymous sender or whatever the fuck, and she tries to give it to his friend, but his friend says no and he says yes, and then while he was walking back home, that note or whatever flies away from him and he tries to chase it, and then he ends up in this magical school where they teach magic. Now you would think that everything's cool in this school, like he's gonna go become a magician, he's awesome and all this shit. That doesn't happen. This dude's a fucking dick face. So anyways, so he goes to the school and they do this elaborate tests for him and all this shit to make sure that he's a magician and all this crap. So this is not like Harry Potter, it's sort of like Harry Potter but really less magical, and magic is really like hard work and stuff and not everyone can do it and you have to be like really super fucking smart and all this shit. Anyway, so he goes in, he passes the test, everything's cool, he joins the school. He stays there for basically 5 years, he meets friends, shit happens, and then he ends up in this magical world called Fillory where a lot of stuff happens again. All of that is cool, like the setting of the world is cool, everything, like the environment is awesome, but here where all the problems start. I have a really big problem with basically, first of all, the main character is an asshole for no reason. Like he starts off with this dorky kid who's like, oh yeah, I'm a nice guy and everyone's against me and I'm a dork and shit like that, and you're like, oh yeah, I feel for him, and then he goes to the school and suddenly he turns like fucking the most demonized ass piece of shit human being that you could ever like hear about or read about or even meet. Like you don't want to meet this dude, like period, fuck this guy. Anyway, so he goes to school, he meets his friends and stuff, and he starts to learn magic slowly, and like really weird shit happens in the story where like this chick dies and shit like that, and he basically killed the chick. It's not that important, so don't worry about it, it's not gonna ruin the story for you. But anyways, this chick dies and basically he's responsible for it, and he doesn't, like, there's no remorse at all. This dude doesn't give a shit. Like, he's so self-centered, he doesn't care about anyone or anyone around him. So he basically goes to the school, gets his education, which lasts 5 years. He meets like a few friends and he hooks up with this girl called Alice and they become in a relationship and they're fucking and all this shit. The problem, here's where the problem starts. Like, there's barely any character growth in the 5 years that he spent in that fucking school. Like, he's an asshole piece of shit, dipshit throughout the whole thing. It doesn't change. And the other thing is, it's like when you try to remember the side characters and who they are, you can barely remember any of them because they don't matter at all in the story. Like the writer just brings up these characters and they start doing shit around Quentin Coldwater, which is the main character, but they don't affect him. Like they doesn't give a shit. Like you don't barely know anything about them. They behave oddly at times. Like there's no character build or character building, character development. This does not exist in the story. Like shit just happens and you have to basically deal with it. It's very random. Anyway, so he leaves the school after 5 years and he's depressed and shit and he doesn't know what the fuck he's going to do. So he ends up living with his buddies who he used to stay with in school, and they end up like going on a few month binge of like drugs and sex and just hardcore partying in New York. He cheats on his girlfriend. He finds a way to go into this magical world called Fillory, and they all just end up going there for no particular reason other than that this dude had like a fucking fetish about these books when he was a kid, and he used to read them all the time. So he was like, oh yeah, I got an opportunity to go to fucking, you know, Philroy bullshit world, so I guess I'll go. So they just go there and they end up, you know, running into like heaps of shit. Some of them die. I'm ruining this book for you guys, but fuck this book, that's the thing. So anyways, some of them die, and all of these things are happening, right? It's still like the characters, like you still don't give a shit about most of the characters, and the dude who you're supposed to care about, you don't care about because he's a dipshit. And the only girl that you basically, or the only character you like, which is Alice, she ends up dying. And it's like, oh fuck. Anyways, so yeah, that's what happens basically. So at the end, it kind of wraps it up. The writer wraps it up in a good way, which is kind of like sort of redeems the shittiness that happens throughout the book. But anyways, this is a weird book. The thing is, I hate this book so much, but at the same time, like, I would recommend that you guys read it. And that's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, you already know, man. It's your boy, TJ. Ain't do no verse on my shit. I already killed you, nigga. Let the legend holler at you.
Yeah. I'm talking true A-Town trap shit, you understand that? Hit the motherfucking king, homeboy. Hey, Trinidad, dig it, home. Aight, come on, big bank. All I do is get bank. Okay. Niggas hating on me, but they bitch ain't. So conceited, I don't think my shit stank. $400,000